If you want to see a hijack movie with no main character, clear plot, or even clear explanation of the plan, where the hijackers take turns running mad and doing stupid things until the scriptwriters get bored at the end and just save us from our misery by having the army shoot blindly into a plane full of hostages, Hijack 93 is the movie for you. The film, which is currently streaming on Netflix worldwide, is supposed to be based on actual events, but the disclaimer at the beginning makes it all so confusing because you need like ChatGPT and Wole Soyinka to decipher exactly what they mean, since they say it's a fictionalized dramatization of a real event. But again, at the same time, any similarity to real event is coincidental. So is it based on real event or not? More likely, they began writing this disclaimer and somebody forgot to change something and they just never came back to it. Because if anyone had read it, I don't know, they would, unless I'm getting something wrong, but this does not make any sense to me. The plot of the movie is very straightforward because, well, it's so vague that I don't even know what to ask or to be curious about. According to the ringleader of the hijackers, they only had to steer the plane to Frankfurt and there their new life awaits. Like, that's basically what he said. But what that means is anybody's guess. And since I'm not paying Netflix to be guessing the plot of the movies I'm watching, I'll just pretend I have no questions. The movie starts out with a bunch of hijackers taking control of the plane because they want the government to reinstate the duly elected democratic president. We have zero history or zero context for this demand, as we are not informed about the election of the military government in power. So basically, if you are not a Nigerian and you don't know anything about 1993, June 12th, and all the elections, then this movie will just feel like a school drama that you stumbled into, halfway through the story. The hijackers who say that they are from the movement for the actualization of democracy, so they are mad basically, take control of the plane by screaming up and down and completely forgetting about the pilots initially. And then when they finally remember how to take control of the cockpit, they announce their demands, not to the government of Nigeria or anybody important, but to the passengers in the plane. Like, my bro, how are the passengers you are holding hostage 18,000 feet above sea level supposed to reinstate MKO Abiola? Like, by the way, I had to Google the plane because I thought it was a bit silly for a massive double decker Airbus to be going from Lagos to Abuja. And I found out that, yes, they did get the plane wrong. The pilot had initially been headed to Abuja but had to do an emergency landing in Niger Republic in order to refuel for the supposed journey to Frankfurt. And and before I continue, I want to say that this movie is actually very well shot, and I didn't struggle to believe that they were inside the plane. I was very impressed that they got the production for such a bad script right. It did make it very watchable. I have to say this now for all the people that say that a movie is spewing hate mail. I actually like the production design of the plane and of that part of this movie. It's finally at the 41-minute mark, after spending a day at the airport, that they actually give the Nigerian Army commander their demands. Now, I don't intend to narrate the whole thing, but I can tell you that the thing just goes sideways from here. We are introduced to the hijacker's background, and of course, one lost his mother, and the other lost his daughter, and the other one is a man child rebelling against his father's dominating whatever or something. I don't care. Just tell me what's happening in Frankfurt. Like, why are you going to Frankfurt? Do you think that the German soldiers are more gentle than the Nigerian army? Like, what was the plan? Oh, by the way, if you are new here, I have a bunch of these reviews on the channel. So take your pick, take some time, subscribe, leave a comment if you see what you like, so that the YouTube algorithm can help my life. So back to the show. The Niger Republic Army Commander has this comically large telescope. I mean, binoculars that he used on the runway. Like, they are so funny every time he used it. I don't want to believe any soldier in the history of modern warfare actually used this, because surely this thing can see into space. Anyway, Hijack 93 is a nicely shot movie with a terrible script that just strains the limit of believability, both in plot and dialogue. There's even like one hijacker who begins simping for one babe nearly from the moment he enters the plane. I mean, she's half Igbo, so you can't blame him. She later steps in front of a bullet meant for him in the worst movie edit that I think I've ever seen. It's also funny. Like, one moment she wasn't there and the hijackers were arguing against among themselves, and then the next thing she had a bullet in her chest. Like, where did she come from? I replayed that section about maybe 10 to 20 times, like, for real, just so I could understand what happened and where she came from. And I still didn't get it. Like, are you coming from? Did you appear from the toilet? Like, what happened? The throwback 1993 theme of the movie was pretty unnecessary, and they could have just made this a random hijack movie because the timestamp didn't really show. I didn't see anyone wearing those big shoulder pads or oversized clothes or those colorful clothes they used to wear. Nobody had an afro. All the hostesses were just like 2024 TikTok baddies. Like, their uniforms were so tight. The audio wasn't also super well mixed because my sound system could barely pick up the whispers and the background noise. At no point did it seem like the hijackers were actually in control in these movies. Like they kept doing this thing where they would all go to different sections of the plane to huddle and gist or to talk about what to do next, and then they will leave the entire rest of the plane free, knowing that there are also soldiers that were flying that are part of the hostages. I had no idea. I'm like, yeah, only three of you. Sometimes one of the hostages would even go, one of the hijackers would even go and sit down with the Igbo babe. And I'm like, what are you doing? You should be with gun attempting to to blow somebody's brains off. Like, what are you guys doing? Are you actually serious about this stuff? Even the person that is supposed to be our lead character, at some point he was just watching the two pilots argue over fuel or something, and they would just start there listening. And I'm like, do something, say something, smack their head. Like, what are you doing? He didn't even interrupt them. I like, so that was why it was so hard for me to say that there's a main character in this movie, because everybody just, in fact, you get the impression that nobody here wants to be here. And maybe it's true because at the beginning, Sam Dede, when he was asking for volunteers, actually says, I need 4 volunteers. That's to do this hijack. And then immediately he says this. The very next thing he does is to pick 4 people. So I don't get it. Are they volunteers or not? Why did you say you needed 4 volunteers if you were just going to pick 4 random people? Well, anyway, the movie ends when the writers finally realized that they had little talent for this kind of storyline and made the soldiers storm a plane full of passengers. Like, the soldiers actually threw smoke bombs into a plane full of hostages. There was no preamble or reason for the incursion. Like, you could just feel the scriptwriters getting fed up and writing a big "the end" just so they could go home and have dinner. Or maybe I should be blaming the director, who may have suddenly realized that he was directing a plane that was about to crash. See what I did there? So the things that I like, the cinematography and the visual effects, they were really well done. For people that I've never seen before, the acting was also really good. I even heard that this is the supposed lead actor's first movie. So I was pretty impressed. I say supposed because I didn't get the impression that anybody in this movie was leading anything. It's just sad that the bad writing let the obviously talented actors down. Things that I didn't really like, everything else. The story, the dialogue, the production design. It was just a waste of my time. But the cinematography is worth it. So I think you should definitely check it out on Netflix. So that will be it for me. I'll be watching out for your comments. Like, leave a comment, subscribe. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next one.